So Trump attacked Venezuela. The result was the capture of Venezuela's president, and Trump saying,
"We're going to run the country."
Now, what would be his reason for doing this?
"We're going to have our United States oil companies go in and start making money."
Or this. But this is complicated, so let's look at this objectively.
Do not allow yourself to be sucked into a debate about whether removing Maduro was good or bad for Venezuela today. That is the conversation that Trump wants you to be having right now. Because every moment spent debating the pros and cons of regime change in Venezuela is a moment not spent defending the U.S. Constitution and preventing the further consolidation of power under Donald Trump. Trump is a master at getting people so focused on a singular tree that they fail to notice the forest around them. And then by the time that they realize what he's done and they look around, he's already burned the entire forest to the ground.
Imagine if Donald Trump was kidnapped and America was invaded overnight. That's exactly what happened in Venezuela. And before I get into my thoughts on it, let me roll you a clip.
So you say during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now. So you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections? Oh, that's good. I wonder
He implies that we have to cancel the election if the U.S. is at war, and then he manufactures a war by blowing up fishermen in Colombia and claiming they Venezuelan drug dealers. Which brings me to two important points.
You know, Americans will wonder why things like 9/11 happen, but then we will wake up to our president explaining that we are going to run Venezuela after kidnapping their president so that we can send our large U.S. oil companies into Venezuela and extract their oil.
America, I think now you'll realize why 9/11 happened. Trump just stood there and said, how is Trump still a president in 2026? Guys, who elected DJT? MAGA, I cursed the day you guys were born, by the way. MAGA, you are evil people. I don't know how you wake up and vote a person in power who analyzes kids, a person who does PDF stuff with Epstein, and a person who is causing colonialism in 2026. MAGA. Wow, you did your best. Wow.
Do not allow yourself to be sucked into a debate about whether removing Maduro was good or bad for Venezuela today. That is the conversation that Trump wants you to be having right now. Because every moment spent debating the pros and cons of regime change in Venezuela is a moment not spent defending the U.S. Constitution and preventing the further consolidation of power under Donald Trump. Trump is a master at getting people so focused on a singular tree that they fail to notice the forest around them. And then by the time that they realize what he's done and they look around, he's already burned the entire forest to the ground. The core message that we should all be coming back to right now is that last night's operation was a gross violation of the United States Constitution and an attempt to further consolidate power under himself. And the reason that this matters so much right now, y'all, is because Trump has already moved on to speculating about what country he wants to invade and what world leader he wants to arrest and replace next. Just listen to this clip from earlier today.
The cartels are running Mexico. She's not running Mexico. The cartels are running Mexico. But they come in through the southern border. Something's going to have to be done with Mexico.
This is why he wants you to spend your time talking about Maduro. And look, I'm not saying that you have to ignore all of the rest of the conversations happening entirely, but I am literally begging y'all, please get loud and stay loud about Congress abdicating their responsibility to rein this in. That has to be a part of the conversation every single time. And finally, I am aware of how pointless it can feel to even try pushing back on this Congress when so many of them, including many Democrats, continue to shit the bed every single day and offer up no meaningful opposition to this administration. But you cannot give up because you cannot comply in advance. If you tell yourself, well, they're just going to do what they want anyway, and libs are going to lib, and conservatives don't give a so why bother? Then you are rubber stamping Trump's consolidation of power just like Congress is. So do not do that. Call your member of Congress, not just today, but every day. Tell them to take back the responsibility and authority bestowed upon them by the Constitution. Set a daily alarm on your phone to remind you if you need to. And just as importantly, contact 3 friends and tell them to do the same. No, actually, you know what? That. Contact 10 friends and tell them to do the same every single day. The only reason that Congress is afraid of Trump is because they think that he is the person in this country with the biggest ability to move the biggest group of people against them. We have to show them that we are bigger and that we are louder and that we are the ones they should be the most afraid of.
My mother celebrated the day that we got invaded in Iraq by the American government. She loved George W. Bush. She loved Tony Blair because they got rid of Saddam Hussein because he was annihilating the Kurds and so many minorities. But she didn't celebrate when she had to drag the body of her dead brother from my grandparents' driveway because the neighborhood got airstruck. A neighborhood that was never going to be airstruck. They're so wealthy, they're so protected, they're protected by the Americans because they've got ties with the Americans. Airstruck. My mother did not celebrate when the Americans bombed my school bus. My mother did not celebrate when we would go to school every day and she would say goodbye to us because she didn't know if we were going to come back. She didn't celebrate that we didn't have a healthy home. She didn't celebrate that we had to be internally displaced in Iraq at least 11 times in 6 years. The break in our education, the break in school and constantly failing because we cannot keep going to school because constantly political pressure and bombings and displacements are happening. She didn't celebrate any of that. She didn't celebrate when we had to leave Iraq at 2 a.m. because my dad's name ended up on a list. And she definitely did not celebrate when she had to become a Kurdish refugee in Turkey under the UN's thumb. And she definitely did not celebrate when we finally arrived to Australia, to a Western country, and she faced Islamophobia and discrimination and bigotry and oppression like she's never seen before. So no, the invasion of Venezuela is not to be celebrated because it's the next Iraq. We know what the play is. We know that they're for oil. We know that they're to destabilize and to extract what they want. And they're getting out of there.
Forget history that we learn, ladies and gentlemen, about colonization. What DJT just did in Venezuela, that's modern day slavery. That's modern day colonization. Forget about what we read. Forget about, oh my God, 100 years ago. No. What DJT is doing right now, it is how the white people invaded America and took away what rightfully belonged to black people. Now black people are called minorities in America. That is exactly what DJT is doing in Venezuela. Causing instability in their country, kabooming the capital, just because he feels like he has power, the superpower of the world. And, no one says anything. Because white supremacy. And all the presidents in America that have come after 9/11, they are alleging that the terrorists, the jihadists, the Muslims, the Somalis, the Afghanistans, those ones from Baghdad, they did what to America? They kaboomed the Twin Towers. A lot of Americans, they lost their lives. And you know what the United States did? Do you know what the United States did to Muslim countries in the Middle East because of the Twin Towers? Exactly. Let's say it is true. These so-called terrorists, they did that to America. Why did they do it? Because American presidents have always put themselves in a situation where they feel like they have power to do anything and whatsoever they want. They will just go to someone's country, they kaboom it, they analyze the presidents, they bring instability in that country. And do you think those countries are going to kumbaya and kiki with America? Absolutely not. They're going to retaliate. They are going to seek revenge. Americans are just finding out in real time that DKT woke up, not only kaboomed Nigeria, a week later, he kaboomed Venezuela. In the capital what? In the capital city. And you know what he did? Exactly. Yes, he took Maduro. What do you think is going on in the heads of Venezuelans right now? Hear me out. We have ice going on. DJT has done each and everything he wants in his power to make sure immigrants do not stay in his country. And that includes Venezuelans that he has treated badly, and ICE has made sure to treat them with the utmost disrespect, to deport them to their country. What is DJT doing in Venezuela right now? I have some notes. This is all about DJT. Here are the notes. Hear me out. Hear me out. So Trump wants to run Venezuela. DJT stood there and said, we are going to run Venezuela. So DJT wants to run Venezuela, but doesn't want immigrants in his country. He doesn't want nothing to do with immigrants, but he wants to run Venezuela. Matter of fact, right now as we speak, DJT, a United States president, is running another country. Also, hear me out. Also, he has ICE deport Venezuelans because there are too many in America. Meanwhile, he is kabooming where they come from. Why do you think people leave their countries? Ask Somalis where they are leaving their countries to come to Minnesota. Exactly. Because stuff is happening in their country. But of course, on the hands of who? The United States of America. We continue. So verily I ask of you, ladies and gentlemen, where does Trump want Venezuelans to go? You don't want them in your country? You are kabooming where they come from. Where are they supposed to go? We continue. Imagine, wait. Oh my God, I'm so fired up for this one. Let's take it back a little bit in time. France and the United Kingdom, they came to Africa and colonized. Now imagine, France colonized half of the African continent, stole and continues to steal their minerals, causing WARs in the countries until today. But still, France doesn't want immigrants from Africa in its country. And my question is, where are the Africans supposed to go? Hello, DRC Congo? Who is causing the instability in DRC Congo? Who colonized DRC Congo? Who doesn't want Congolese in their country? France. Where are Congolese supposed to go? We continue. I think as I make this video, ladies and gentlemen, I don't even want to say I want Americans to have a takeaway of, wow, other people have it so bad because of America. Because already I feel like Americans have already decided that actually we are cooked. I feel like Americans have already gotten it in their heads that they are cooked. Because even Americans themselves, they are sick and tired of being in danger every single day because of the acts of the orange man. We continue. So, compare the Venezuela situation to Libya. Are we together? Trump keeps saying Maduro is a dictator. So he is kabooming Venezuela to kind of free Venezuelans from the dictator Maduro. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because this is a narrative American presidents have kept on saying since day one. You know, the president from Uganda, the president in Kenya, the president in South Africa. I mean, DJT tried to play this game on the South African president saying, oh, you know, the whites are very much badly treated in South Africa. This is how they start when they want to come and colonize your country. So, all American presidents, they've been doing this. They wake up and say, in Somalia, there is a dictatorship. Before you know it, kaboom, in Somalia. Now Somalians don't have anywhere to go. When they seek refuge in America, DJT doesn't want them no more. Where are they supposed to go? Anyway, so basically, Trump, the nerve. Trump is saying, I kaboomed Venezuela. I'm helping you Venezuelans. I am freeing you from a dictator. But hold up now. In the meantime, Venezuela has a lot of oil, so we're going to be taking the oil.
Bro, do you know how terrified every other world leader will be right now seeing the US capture the president of Venezuela like that? Right? It was just yesterday that he was giving interviews on TV talking about, how he's willing to negotiate with the US to combat drug trafficking for one of the first times. He goes to sleep that night. Who knows where, but he is was the president, and so it's going to be somewhere hella secure. And then between 12 and 3 a.m., we hear that the US's Army's Delta Force, which is their top counterterrorism unit, has got boots on the ground in Venezuela. They've managed to snatch him and his wife from his own country, put him on a chopper, and fly him to an undisclosed location. No one knows where he is. We don't know if he's alive. We don't know what this means for Venezuela's future. Is this an act of war? Is this a major breach of international law? Does the US even care about that? It's like, just for other world leaders seeing this, to know that the US military has the ability to carry out something like that is going to send shockwaves to all of them watching.
While the USA was abducting Maduro from his home in his sleep with his wife, two other important things were happening that they don't want you to look at. They wanted you to look over there while they are pulverizing the encampments in Gaza. That's the first. But if you've been paying attention, you know. The other one is that France had the audacity, this piece of skinny sausage had the audacity to try to remove this guy from power, but his people showed up on the streets and did not allow. There's videos everywhere on social media of the people of Burkina Faso coming to the streets, surrounding the government building where he was, and saying, we are not going to allow for the colonizer to come back and remove our leader. They try to do it in the quiet while you were paying attention to what's happening in Venezuela. But pay attention, people aren't taking it.
Happy Sunday morning. It's about 9 a.m. Out running some errands, just had some breakfast. And my brother he texted me a video this morning that I watched while I was eating breakfast. Mr. Global, I think yesterday, put up like a 20-minute long video entitled Why U.S. Oil Companies Won't Go into Venezuela. And two things. One, Mr. Global exemplifies daily something for which I have a deep appreciation, and something which Donald Trump and his supporters have nothing but disdain and disrespect and dismissiveness. And that thing that he has is expertise. He has a deep level of knowledge and understanding in oil and gas. And, one of my favorite things about being on TikTok for the last 4.5 years is that I've discovered and I have been able to become friends with people who are experts in their fields. Whether it's Laughter and Light, or Legal Dad and Barrister, Mr. Global, Dr. Rubin. There's so many people. Who are experts in one thing, and they know almost everything there is to know about that one thing or that one area. And, the anti-intellectualism on the right and the deep distrust of experts that came about during the COVID pandemic, it's like Donald Trump and his half-smart, brain-dead, fart-huffing supporters have absolutely no use for experts. And in fact, their Dunning-Kruger haze that they navigate every day in the middle of has filled them with the confidence that they know more about these areas than actual experts do. And so I just think it's really important that we acknowledge the people in our world who we get to interact with and watch, who know what they're talking about. And Mr. Global is certainly one of those people. And so please go to his YouTube page and watch that video. Why U.S. oil companies won't go into Venezuela. The premise is incredibly simple. The government is unstable. The country is unstable. Venezuela has like 17% of the world's oil reserves, which are worthless unless they can be extracted, processed, and sold for a profit. And when you've got an unstable country, an unstable government, in an unstable part of the world, it doesn't matter how much oil reserves you have if you can't make a profit. And he spoke a lot about how, U.S. oil companies would have to go in there for a decade and invest $100 billion or more. Investments that they could lose at any given moment, depending on who's in charge of the government. And, he made another really good point. He was like, what is the point of these oil companies at the end of the day? To make a profit. They can use their cash reserves anywhere they want to in the world and make a profit in places that is much, much, much easier to do that than in Venezuela right now in January of 2026. And it's just, I was watching that video and, I enjoy listening to people talk when those people know more than I do about a subject that I'm interested in, because then I can learn. I can learn something, and through their expertise and presentation, then I can become smarter. That, to me, is one of the main benefits of an app like TikTok. I can listen to smart people, and I can learn things, and I can become smarter. Mr. Global is one of those people. I have such a deep appreciation for his knowledge and the way he presents information, and his years of experience. And I watched that whole video this morning while I was eating breakfast, and by the end, I was just like, by the end of it, I was sitting there thinking, did Donald Trump even talk to any oil executives before he decided to do this? Because after watching Mr. Global's video, it seems painfully obvious that there's no upside, or very, very, very little upside compared to absolutely massive risks for U.S. oil companies to go into Venezuela. It's not like U.S. oil tankers can just pull up to the dock and fill up with oil and bring it back here and sell it. There's a little more to it than that. And so hearing how just painfully obvious it is that there really isn't any profit to be made in Venezuela currently. It's like, again, did Donald Trump have a single conversation with any oil executives before he decided to invade Caracas and remove President Maduro? And then I read another thing this morning. I can't remember her first name. Her last name is Machado, the woman who won the last election and then won the Nobel Peace Prize, which she dedicated to Donald Trump. One would think that she would be the rightful person to take Maduro's place, but Donald Trump hates women.
Imagine if Donald Trump was kidnapped and America was invaded overnight. That's exactly what happened in Venezuela. And before I get into my thoughts on it, let me roll you a clip.
So you say during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now. So you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections? Oh, that's good.
He implies that we have to cancel the election if the U.S. is at war, and then he manufactures a war by blowing up fishermen in Colombia and claiming they Venezuelan drug dealers. Which brings me to two important points. One about the war on drugs and one about law and order. The first is that it's supposed to be the president and the party of law and order and keeping the Constitution and abide by the law. Did he get authority from the Congress to be able to invade and wage war in Venezuela? No, he did not. Which brings me to the second point of how these folks full of shit. Now, you claiming that you're doing this with Venezuela because you're fighting the war on drugs, but you just pardoned the president of Honduras that was responsible for bringing in 400 tons of that Yola into America. 400 tons. Now you're trying to convince us in America you care about drugs in Venezuela? What going on? The same folks that will justify a black person having their life exterminated because they not conform to the law will allow this man to run rogue, whether they be talking about being convicted of a whole bunch of felonies or whether we talking about waging an illegal war. They don't care about the law, except for when they look like me. And we always knew y'all was full of shit when y'all said all lives matter. We can sensationalize no American casualties when this invading happened, but we don't talk about the casualties that happened on the Venezuelan side. We don't think about the citizens that was in proximity to these museums they blowing up and how we ain't seen there's no humanitarian people that break the law. What does this have to do with the shit countries Donald Trump is always talking about? Well, a lot of those individuals are coming to America for asylum because the American government, what Donald Trump did, they'll do shit like they did to Venezuela. Destabilize the country, making it where it's easy to take their resources. What happens is now the country is running rogue because the leadership has been taken away. You kidnap the leader. But confirmation bias allows us to say, this proves that these people are irrational and underdeveloped, and it justifies us doing better with their resources because look at them.
How's it? If we thought 2025 was bad, 2026 just said, hold my drink. Because what do you mean on the 3rd of January, the United States sanctioned a very illegal military mission into the sovereign state of Venezuela?